As exams in third year draw closer and closer, I want to talk to you about one of my favorite tools I use to study, which is flow. Flow is this kind of mythical, magic seeming state that people randomly enter in, but it's actually not. And there's 5 steps you can follow to get into this flow state. Flow was first described in this book called Flow, written by an American-Hungarian psychologist called Dr. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and he describes it as a focused mental state that facilitates productivity. In the book, he says that humans are happiest when they're pursuing a meaningful goal, and that flow also works better and is better when you decide to focus on something for intrinsic reasons, because you want to, not because something else is telling you you have to. So just bear that in mind as we go into these 5 steps. The first one being picking the right task. Picking the right task isn't about the type of task you're supposed to do. It's not reading versus memorizing versus painting. It's more about the difficulty of the task that you're supposed to do. If you're trying to do something that's too easy for you, you won't be able to achieve flow. But the same goes if it's too difficult for you. You have to find the middle point somehow in which you're still being challenged, but it is still within your grasp to do the task that you set out to do. Step number 2 is to have a clearly defined goal. You need to know exactly what you're striving to get to, where you want to arrive, or as you're working, if you have no goal, you'll simply start wondering, where am I going with this? What do I want to do? What if this is enough? What if it's not? So once you've defined a goal, it'll be so much easier to get there once you get started and once you get into the flow state. Which leads us to step number 3, removing distractions. Removing distractions is both very, very simple, but one of the most crucial steps that we're going to talk about. Because you don't need as many things as you think you do, and you really need to minimize the amount of stuff that could distract you. You don't need your phone on the table, put it away. You don't need 2 tabs, put it away. You don't need background music, turn it off. The amount of stuff you have should be the bare minimum for what you need and nothing else for you to not distract yourself. Step number 4 is to take a deep breath and focus in the moment. It's hard, especially if you're cramming, especially if you're doing something last minute. But if you're worrying or if your mind is trying to think of deadlines or trying to think of speed, it's very hard for you to focus on what you're supposed to be doing then and there. And it's going to be really hard for you to get into this flow state that will help you out in the long run. And step 5 is a bit of a 2-parter because it's to work mindfully, focused in the now, focused on what you're supposed to be doing. But it's important that you do it without going into autopilot. You're supposed to be aware in the present moment of your task and of your goal and just working towards that consciously and mindfully without drifting off into your dreams or into your fanciful scenarios, right? And if you catch yourself drifting, just bring yourself back into the present moment and keep going at the task that you're going on before. Now, these are the 5 steps that I've used multiple times to get into the flow state before a particularly long studying session. If I'm studying 4, 5, 6 hours, I really enjoy doing this. If it's like an hour, I don't find it as easy to be focused, to be in the moment, etc. And before I wrap up the video, I just want to give you an example of what these 5 steps look like, along with a couple of my own steps that I've collected over the past 3 years. The first one being something that I learned from a therapist is that I should meditate for like 5-10 minutes before and after. Starting with before, just to clear my mind of any distractions, just to be in the moment, be present, know what I have to do, and really let everything else but the task at hand go. And this ties in really well with steps 4 and 5, but doing it even before I define tasks, I define goals, I find the right difficulty has been really, really helpful. And then an example of picking the right task might be doing flashcards instead of trying to label an anatomy map, for example. I might want to do flashcards of a specific part of the body instead of trying to color in a coloring book. I might want to do flashcards of a specific part of the body instead of trying to label it with nothing in my mind, right? That might be too difficult, but at the same time, reading the book might be too easy. So finding that right task might be doing flashcards. Picking the goal, defining a goal might be, I want to be able to name all of the muscles in the forearm without having to look at a resource. Or it might be, I want to complete my 200 flashcards on the forearm, for example. So once I've defined that, I move on to the next one, which is to remove distractions. If I'm doing flashcards, I might just need my flashcards. If I'm doing flashcards on my computer, I might just need Anki. And I'll turn off the music, I'll turn off the Wi-Fi even, and I'll just do Anki, no phone, no watch, nothing. Just me and my computer, and it really, really helps to remove distractions, trust me. Finally, take a deep breath. It's kind of just going back to the first meditation I did, which is just, before I even start, to know that I am going to be challenged, but I have to persevere, and that I want to keep myself focused, and I want to think of what I'm doing now. I want to think of every flashcard. I don't want to rush through them. I don't want to think about my mistakes, like dwell on them too much. I just want to do one flashcard, think about it, internalize it, move on, keep myself in the now. And that ties on beautifully to step 5, which is just to work mindfully, which is basically the same thing I did. You breathe, and then you think mindfully, and thus like 4 and 5 together. And then at the end of my studying sessions, what I try to do again is meditate for 5 to 10 minutes. Again, just remove myself from the studying environment, give myself closure, whether I feel like I had a good session, a bad session, a so-so session, whether I'm not sure how well I did or how much I'm gonna retain. I just give myself closure, give myself permission to move on, like go along with my day after having studied 4, 5, 6, 10 hours, whatever, and then just keep going. And I do that 2-3 times a day. Like for example, if I'm studying 4 hours in the morning, then having lunch, and then 4 hours in the afternoon, I'll do those 7 steps now. The morning, have lunch, and then the 7 steps again in the afternoon for every studying session. That's pretty much how I get into the flow state while studying, especially now that classes are gonna stop soon and we'll have nothing to do but study all day, every day. This is what I'm gonna be doing, and I'll show you guys in a study with me video later, but all right, I'll catch you in the next one.